Good morning everyone and welcome to the class. We are doing the chapter Cold War and Non-Aligned Movement. And under this chapter we have discussed in the previous class about the starting of the non-aligned movement. And in this regard we have seen the important role was played by the three important leaders who were friends also, and these were Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru of India and Joseph Tito of Yugoslavia and Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt. These were the three leaders who met in 1956, and from there started the seed of non-aligned movement. And then later we see that two more leaders joined these three leaders, and these two leaders were Sukarno of Indonesia and Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. So these five leaders are known as the founding fathers of the non-aligned movement. So you must remember the name of all these five leaders and the country to which they belong. And we see that the first summit of NAM was held in 1961 in Belgrade. And we have also discussed the reason for which this non-aligned movement started. The main three factors was there at that time. The first is that the effort which was done by these five countries. There was cooperation between these five countries, and this cooperation was the main reason behind the starting of the non-aligned movement. Then we see that at that time Cold War was started after the end of the Second World War, and this Cold War was dividing the whole world into two blocks, two power blocks. So there was need of a third option in order to bring peace and security in the world, and that was provided by this non-aligned movement. And then we see that after the Second World War, new development took place in the world politics, and that was the emergence of so many new independent countries, because these countries were the colonies of European powers. And when Europe became very weak because of Second World War, it was not able to maintain its colony at such distant places. So what started, that these countries started to get independence, and we see that the map of the world changed very rapidly during this period. So we see that they needed they all were facing same type of problem. So there was need of cooperation among these newly independent countries of Asia, Africa and Latin America, and that is why they united themselves as this non-aligned movement. And we see that the first summit, which was held in Belgrade in 1961, in that summit 25 member states took part. It means in 1961 the membership of NAM was 25. And what we see that the membership of NAM has increased over the years, because the NAM has proved its utility. And we see that in your book it is given the latest meeting of NAM was held in 2019 in Azerbaijan. That was the 18th summit. Okay, 2019 Azerbaijan, and this is the 18th summit of NAM. And in this meeting, we see the membership increased to 120. And there were also some observer countries, and the number of these observer countries were 17. So, in 2019, the membership was 120, and the number of observer countries was 17. Okay. So what we find, the first summit which held in 1961 in Belgrade, at that time the membership was just 25, and what we find that in the year 2019 this membership rose to 120. So this is a very substantial expansion of the membership of NAM. And now we see that this non-aligned movement grew into a type of international movement. And because of this nature of its movement, what happened that so many countries became its member. There was no foundation कि the country should be capitalist or the country should be socialist or communist or anything like that. Nothing, no foundation was there on the political system that was there in the country. If any country wanted to be non-aligned, if any country was not willing to join any of the alliances, it was free to join non-aligned movement. So what we find that so many countries became the member of non-aligned movement, and this brought diversity in the NAM, because so many countries with different political system, with different ideologies were becoming member of NAM. So this because of this what happened that the movement became less homogeneous. There was lack of homogeneity. जैसे हम अगर वेस्टर्न अलायंस और ईस्टर्न अलायंस को देखें तो व्हाट वी फाइंड दैट in those alliances there was homogeneity, because in Western alliance all the countries were belonging to capitalist ideology and liberal democracy, and in the Eastern alliance all the countries were belonging to communism and socialism. But in NAM there was no such ideology. The only thing was that if you want to be non-aligned, you can join non-aligned movement. So this was this movement became very full of diversity. And one more thing that is very important, if we have to define what is non-aligned movement, what do you mean by non-aligned movement? So in that situation it will be difficult for us to define NAM in terms of what it was. ये क्या था या ये क्या है, उस तरह से हम इसको नहीं समझा सकते. We will be more able to make people understand what was NAM by making them understand what NAM was not. क्या वो नहीं था. When we will be able to know what NAM was not, then we will also know what NAM was. So first of all we will discuss what NAM was not. what NAM was not, क्या NAM नहीं था. So in this condition, in this regard, we will see that non-aligned movement was not becoming a part of the alliance system. So many times it is considered as isolationism or neutrality. So first of all, we will discuss isolationism. Isolation. Nowadays, during this COVID-19 period, we find this the most used term is isolation, and we all are knowing the meaning of this term. It means that to keep someone separate from other people, है ना? So many times this NAM is people misunderstand NAM as isolationism. Isolationism is not, NAM is not isolationism, because when a country adopts this isolationism, it remain aloof from the world affairs. If it is following the policy of isolation, then in that situation it will cut itself from rest of the world, not physically, but it will not be involved in any matter or political matter, international political matter or any international matter. उससे इसको कुछ भी मतलब नहीं होगा. ये अपने आप को बिल्कुल काट लेते हैं ऐसे कंट्री जो आइसोलेशन की पॉलिसी को अडॉप्ट करते हैं, and they have nothing to do with the world politics. That is zero for them. Okay, this is a policy of isolationism, and this policy was adopted by America after the War of Independence. America adopted this policy of isolationism from 1787 to 1914 when the First World War started. So First World War शुरू होने के पहले तक America was adopting the policy of isolationism, in which it was it cut itself from rest of the world. It has nothing to do with the international politics. It was not there to express its views regarding any incident or anything. It was completely aloof. So this is the policy of isolationism. And if we consider the role played by the non-aligned country in the world politics, is not isolationism. These countries are not practicing isolationism. They are very much active in international politics. And we have seen when the South Korea and North Korea were involved in battle, in war. In that situation, we have seen that the two superpowers, there was probability of the coming of these two superpowers in direct conflict. But at that time, India played a very active role in bringing peace in Korea. So if NAM is isolationism and India is one of the founding countries of NAM, so India should not have contributed in bringing peace between North Korea and South Korea, because isolationism means to keep itself aloof. But India was not aloof. India played an important role in bringing these two Koreas in peaceful relationship. Not only India, there are many examples when these non-aligned countries played a very, very important role in bringing peace. So non-aligned movement is not isolationism. What we find that the countries belonging to non-aligned movement, they are very much united. Why they are united? Because all these countries have a similar history. They all were, almost all of them were the colonies of European power. And after getting independence, all these countries were facing same type of problem, like the problem of economic backwardness, the problem of establishing democracy, then the problem of bringing economic progress or economic development. So then to make the constitution, to establish democracy. So all these countries were facing same kind of problem, and all these countries were having almost same type of aspirations from the future. So there was unity among these non-aligned countries, and this unity is their strength, because we have seen united we stand. So in this world we find that these countries are very small. अगर इनको इंडिविजुअली देखें तो ये जो एशिया, अफ्रीका और लैटिन अमेरिका की कंट्रीज हैं वो बहुत छोटी छोटी कंट्रीज हैं, बट इंडिविजुअली वो छोटे हैं. अगर वो सभी कलेक्ट हो जाए, एक साथ हो जाए, तो जो हमने देखा फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड, सेकेंड वर्ल्ड और थर्ड वर्ल्ड, तो ये थर्ड वर्ल्ड विल नॉट बी, ऐसा नहीं कि वो बहुत छोटा रह जाएगा. अगर सभी मिलकर के साथ में रहते हैं तो ये थर्ड वर्ल्ड जो है वो भी एक सुपर पावर की फॉर्म में आ सकता है. Okay, so their strength was based on their unity and their resolve to remain non-aligned. They were determined to remain non-aligned because at that time, during the Cold War era, we find that both the superpowers wanted to bring more and more countries into their influence, and that is why they put in so much effort to bring these non-aligned countries into their influence. But the non-aligned countries were very much determined to follow this policy of non-alignment, and these superpowers were not successful in bringing these countries into their alliances. So this is their strength. Their unity is their strength. Their resolve to remain non-aligned despite the attempt by the superpowers to bring them into their influence and alliance. So this is the strength, and we can now again compare this non-alignment with neutrality. Neutrality is the policy of staying out of war. If there is war, then in that situation the neutral country will stay out of war. That is neutrality. It's not isolationism, because in isolation we are seeing that the country who is adopting this policy, it cut itself. It is completely aloof from rest of the world. But in this neutrality, what we find that a country will be considered as neutral when it follows the policy of staying away or staying out of war. ये कभी भी किसी भी वॉर में इन्वॉल्व नहीं होते हैं जो न्यूट्रल कंट्रीज होते हैं. ओके, एंड दे do not get involved in war and do not take any position on the appropriateness or morality of a war. So first of all, they do not take part. It's okay. And the second thing is that they never give such a statement that जो वॉर हुआ उसके लिए कौन किसको हम लोग रिस्पॉन्सिबल कह सकते हैं, क्यों वॉर हुआ, इसमें किसका नुकसान हो रहा है. एनी काइंड ऑफ स्टेटमेंट कैन नॉट बी गिवन बाय द न्यूट्रल country because it is neutral. Its neutrality will be violated if it issues a statement in favor of any country or against any country. So what is important in order to remain neutral, that a country must stay out of war, and it must not express its views regarding the morality or appropriateness of war. That is very much required. And now we see that if we see India, our country, the example is very simple. We see that India was involved in so many wars. With Pakistan we have 4 wars. Then with China we have a one very important war. So what we find that India is a non-aligned country, and still it was involved in war. So non-alignment is not neutrality. Okay, so in order to understand what is non-aligned movement, we must have to understand what is this non-aligned movement not. क्या नहीं है ये? It's not isolationism. It's not neutrality. We have an example of neutral country like Switzerland. It's a neutral country because it is a landlocked country. It is locked by land territory from all sides, and that was the main reason for adopting this policy of neutrality. So in this way we can define non-aligned movement. And now our next subtopic is new international economic order. New international So these non-aligned countries were facing many problems, but what we find that the most important problem which was faced by these non-aligned countries was the problem of economic development. These countries were economically exploited by their colonial rulers. They were not having developed agriculture, as well as industrial development was also very bad. There was no any kind of technological advancement taken place in the country. So when these countries became independent, the most important problem was to develop the economy. And not only this, the number of poor people or the people who were living below poverty line was also very high in these countries. So it was also one of the most important challenge of these countries to reduce the number of people who are living below poverty line. And we see that these third world countries who became independent after the Second World War, these third world countries are also called developing countries. These are third world countries. These are called developing countries. Means the process of development of economy is going on in these countries. They have not reached the stage of economic development. They are developing. And among these non-aligned countries, some countries are categorized as LDC, means least developed countries. Least developed So they have this economic challenge in front of them, and we see that these countries were very much in need of rapid economic growth, because this economic growth will not only bring prosperity, this economic growth will not only reduce the number of poor people, but this economic growth, economic development is very much required for the independence of these countries. In the absence of economic development, what happened that these countries needed economic aid because of poverty. They were always in need of economic aid, and this economic aid was provided by the developed countries. And if these countries are dependent economically on the developed countries, it means their independence will be obstructed. They will no more remain an independent country. Just consider from the viewpoint of an individual. If an individual takes any kind of loan from a person, then what happens that if the loan amount is very big, in that situation what happens that the person has to accept the views of his creditor, though he may not be acceptable, he may not accept the views of the creditor. He is not he thinks that the view of the creditor is not correct. Still he has to accept in public that yes, it is he has to give support to that person because he has taken loan from him. So in the similar situation, similar condition arise when a country gets economic aid. In that situation, the country loses its independence because it has to follow the country who has given credit to it. So in this way we find that it is very important for a country to be economically developed, so that there should be no need of economic aid by these countries. So in this regard we will see that there was a new idea developed, and this idea was new international economic order. And we see that there is a organization which is called UNCTAD, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. This UNCTAD has brought out a report in the year 1972, and the name of the report was Towards a New Trade Policy for Development. And in this report there was proposal for reform in the global trading system, and all these reforms were aimed at bringing equality in the international economic order, and this equality is the new international economic order. Okay, so this is the we will discuss this new international economic order in the next class in detail, but here you must understand that this the report which was brought out by UNCTAD, the name of the report was Towards a New Trade Policy for Development, and in this report only we find that this new international economic order was demanded by the these least developed countries, this international economic order is in favor of LDCs. So we will discuss all these things in the next class.